Way back in the ancient year of 2011, let's not dwell on the fact that that was 10 years ago, Cartoon Network decided to debut their newest show, The Amazing World of Gumball. I'll admit, at the time I really didn't know what to make of it. Being visually nice and distinct as well as having the occasional funny moment made it a nice enough show, but I really wasn't expecting a whole lot. Little did I know that it would eventually grow into one of the funniest and smartest shows that Cartoon Network has ever created.
Mr. Small looked at Larry and said, "It's not you, Larry, it's me." No, wait, no. Larry said, "We can't see each other anymore."
Set in the fictional town of Elmore, which I'm assuming is American on account of the random acts of violence that happen there on a daily basis, The Amazing World of Gumball follows the slice-of-life misadventures of the Watterson family, and all the reality-bending bullshit they get caught up in on a daily basis. Which, on paper, perhaps doesn't sound like the most amazing premise for a show. And yet, despite using the rather formulaic premise of a funny cartoon family, Gumball managed to be one of the most consistently funny and entertaining plus imaginative shows ever put on CN. But what is it about Gumball that makes it quite so special? Well, dear viewer, let us count the ways. The first and perhaps most striking thing about Gumball that will stand out even to a newcomer is how it appears visually. All these different art styles and mediums blending together just seamlessly. I really don't think it's much of an exaggeration to say that Gumball is undoubtedly one of the most complex and visually pleasing things Cartoon Network has ever put out. Gumball is a 2D talking cat whose next door neighbor is a Muppet whose school teacher is a 3D monkey whose archenemy is a CG abomination, and yet none of these characters ever feel remotely out of place.
Mom?
I know, sweetie. Don't think about it too much.
Elmore, as a setting, just looks consistently good, to the point where even looking at background characters is exciting because you get to see some imaginative new designs in motion. Personally speaking, I've never bought into the whole CalArts conspiracy, which claims that there's some sort of strange, ongoing effort to make sure every Western cartoon looks identical, because reasons, I guess. But I will also admit that there is a fair bit of sameness in the Western animation industry, and as a result, there's nothing that looks quite the way Gumball does. Except for the Chinese bootleg of Gumball, I guess, but we'll get back to that.
Sometimes foreshadowing is relatively obvious.
To quote the creator of the show, Ben Buckley, and I'm not even going to remotely stop and check if I pronounced that correctly, I started looking back at the characters that I created for commercials. It was a big mashup of 2D, stylized 3D, realistic 3D, and even stop motion. I lined them up and the result looked varied and unusual. I really like the idea of a show without graphic unity. All these characters that had been rejected, they had no purpose. I found that quite endearing. I integrated them into the photo of a schoolyard and was quite excited with the outcome. Maybe it's my sentimental side talking, because even someone as terrible as me has one, but I find something really charming about all these rejected character designs being given a second chance.
Hey, that's pretty good.
The background environments are admittedly a little less impressive. They're mainly just suburban American locales. But there are certainly occasions where the art team really get to cut loose with the background environments, particularly the void that exists all around Elmore. You know, the terrible eldritch void that sucks in anything the universe deems to be too boring. We'll come back to that later. And there's a lot to be said for how fun and engaging the characters are, like Gumball and Darwin and the insane bullshit they always find themselves getting caught up in. Nicole being the put-upon housewife and mother who occasionally goes absolutely fucking Super Saiyan on people. Or Richard, who is... well, okay, Richard is basically every dumb idiot dad character you get in every sitcom ever made, but, you know, he is occasionally funny. Really, when it comes to the Watterson family as characters, the only weak link is Anais. A lot of the episodes focused on her just aren't that good, and she's generally unfunny compared to the rest of the family. Wow, she really is the Lisa Simpson of this show. If I'm being totally honest, I really have no idea why so many Western cartoons have these annoying, bratty, smart kid sister characters, but, you know, I kinda wish they'd stop doing that. And the various side characters who exist throughout Elmore? Yeah, they're all pretty great too. Who doesn't love Banana Joe? Maniacs and racists, that's who.
Banana. Banana. Banana.
I will say that Gumball's first season is pretty rough in most respects, like humor and voice acting and art style and animation. But then again, that's kind of the norm for cartoons in general. You know, like SpongeBob's first season, that looks rough. From season 2 onward though, well, the quality for everything just kind of skyrocketed from there. The humor, in particular, just got better and better as the years went on. For one thing, I don't think I've ever seen any show that consistently clobbers the fourth wall into submission in the same way the Amazing World of Gumball does. Just non-stop banger after banger meta joke like this.
Yeah, sure. I remember it like it was yesterday.
Why don't you flash back to it now, then?
All right.
Or this.
What the? Wait, what's happening? It's like there's some kind of device censoring every gosh word I say.
Cursing is unsafe, Gumball. Words can hurt.
And there are times where meta is the basis for an entire plot. You remember that Chinese bootleg version of Gumball I mentioned a while ago? Yeah, there was a whole episode based on that concept. Non-stop roasting of those guys. And you know what? They deserved it. Or how about that evil nebulous void I mentioned earlier? Yeah, the whole joke with that is, we forgot these background characters existed and so the universe itself swallowed them whole. Hell, they even managed to make a whole recurring bad guy out of this one joke. And I have to give the creators credit, they do manage to make a lot of references towards modern culture and internet memes without sounding absolutely Jurassic in the process.
Well, just take a look at what happened when you wrote in it.
Wait. I'm an otaku. The light could kill me.
Similar to Regular Show, which I covered in another video, another aspect of Gumball's charm when it comes to its humor is the fact that they were able to squeeze in some surprisingly adult content at times.
If you reinflate, you can have a shot with Masami.
I don't think I have the strength to inflate. Thanks, Gumball.
Whatever, man.
I know what that scene just implied, you know what that scene just implied, so how on earth did it get past the censors? Regardless of how the showrunners got away with it, some sloppy toppy was likely involved, it still makes for some of the most memorable humor the Cartoon Network has ever produced. Sadly, after producing 6 seasons of absolutely fire content, the story for The Amazing World of Gumball ends on something of a cliffhanger. Yeah, I know that sounds weird considering the kind of show this is, but you know, dude, trust me. You see, the last episode of the show seems to be sort of a meta-commentary about the impending cancellation of the series, where the aforementioned void seems to surge up and consume everything in Elmore. There was a fair bit of chatter about there being some kind of sequel series or a movie that would provide some degree of closure, but as you can imagine, that didn't happen. Much like with the entirety of my life, there was a great deal of promise and potential, and then nothing came of it. Seems like Gumball was yet another casualty of the Discovery-Warner merger, which just seems to cause more and more problems as time goes on. Maybe someday there will be some kind of closure with The Amazing World of Gumball, but for the time being, the story ends on something of a sour, sad note.
Hey, buddy, where you going with my tires? Hey, stop! That guy has to be stopped!